Betty Lou was born in 1937 in North Carolina. Her family was dysfunctional and the time was such a Great Depression was just coming to an end. The country and the world were not going well when the girl was 3 years old. She had measles, almost completely losing her hearing. According to other sources, this happened when she was 5. In addition, she got from her parents who would have kept a tight rein on her. Much later she told how at the age of 5 she experienced violence from the outside. This affected her further perception of life. Because of problems with hearing and speech, she could not get a full-fledged education, although she made considerable efforts to do this. At least at school, lip reading and communicating, the girl studied independently for some reason. The moment the family moved to Virginia when the girl turned 12, her mother was sent to a psychiatric hospital from an alcoholic. There was no time for children, so the young lady had to take the upbringing of her younger brother and sister into her own hands, and left school. Robert was Betty's only husband, whom she did not try to kill. The first marriage happened when it was only 15 years later. A year later, her first daughter was born to Robert. Franklin. Harmony and happiness are not known. Betty fell into depression. The couple separated, but unofficially, and the girl turned out to be in the clinic after a suicide attempt. Robert returned to her life 6 months later. They were together again. 1954, a second daughter was born. They all moved to Texas. Married to her first husband, 4 more children appeared. And by the age of 29, Betty was a mother with many children with no prospects and increasingly worried about the thought of lost youth, trying to make up for lost time, and began to seek solace in bars.
Hey, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You have to subscribe to the channel and like it so you don't miss new videos.
Only now she tried alcohol. New acquaintances appeared, new lovers, and in 1969, Robert and I separated. Probably Robert became the initiator of the divorce, since later already being a star, the woman longingly recalled her first marriage. She loved her husband, which is probably why he was her only spouse whom she did not try to kill. After that, life, which was difficult to call happy before, went in an incomprehensible direction and managed to save. A slender figure in the behavior of an American woman differed little from a teenager. There was no rebuff from boyfriends, but it was all fleeting relationships without proper education and qualifications. At least in some ways Betty saw a way to ensure her life and the lives of her children is to get more or less a wealthy spouse in less than a year to be married to Bella Zerka. However, their marriage lasted only 4 months. The relationship was no better than that of a cat and a dog. Everything ended with a court decision according to which they were banned from approaching to be, and the truth was that they were still attracted to each other. And in '71, another meeting ended in a fight during which Billy broke his former nose, and later the man threatened to kill her. Imagine the opportunity for him. The girl had no debts left, and the next day after the threats she herself tried to destroy Beldy by shooting him in the back with another. According to the back of the head, but this is less likely. She was detained. However, the lightly wounded guy signed papers that notified law enforcement that he had started. The first charge of attempted murder was dropped. A less serious attack was left in the 72nd year, and they were beaten and remarried, but a month later they separated. This time, in the 73rd year, maybe I met Ronnie Track Hold'em, whom I met for the next 4 years, and in the 78th I married him. As soon as family life began to give the first sprouts, the relationship collapsed, apparently the example of my own parents. Young women put pressure on her subconscious mind, built relationships according to a familiar and painful algorithm. What exactly happened is not important, but less than a year after the wedding Betty tried to move her spouse by car. He did not write statements, although he began to behave more cautiously. Meanwhile, a mother with many children found a new way of earning money in 1979. She got a job in one of the bars where topless danced. Apparently she was so carried away by the process that she found herself in an inappropriate form where it is prohibited. The result was an accusation of indecent behavior and then a divorce from Ronnie, which was enough. Experiences for years to come. About a month passed and Bisha turned out to be a married woman again. This time no one became her chosen one, Dwayne. The affair with him was swift for less than 2 months, really. After the divorce, they continued to meet for another couple of years until the 81st year of duel disappeared. The woman claimed that everything happened after a quarrel and the ex-husband left in anger, leaving his truck so that she could sell it after 8 months to be and married a client of a bar where she worked as a waitress. Jimmy Don fell in love with a curvaceous American woman and she reciprocated to a newly retired firefighter. Their relationship developed for 6 months, followed by a wedding for maybe the 6th in a row, despite the fact that Jimmy had his own house. I moved into Betty's trailers. The housing was located on the shore of the lake with a picturesque view. Besides, it would be possible to fish here for fun. Less than a year after the wedding, the police received a call to the law enforcement officers who arrived and said that her husband had disappeared somewhere in the morning. He went by boat to go fishing, and since then nothing has been heard about him until a week later a boat was found on the same lake that washed ashore and the motor was raised. The screw was damaged. A fishing license, sunglasses and nitroglycerin tablets were found in it. Licenses and a prescription on tablets indicated. The owner of Jimmy Don, who discovered the boat, knew the man well. He was a qualified mechanic and an outstanding swimmer with excellent physical fitness. Although nitroglycerin indirectly spoke about Jimmy's possible problems with his heart, his former colleagues and local residents joined his search. Respecting a man from 100 boats cruised along the river. Helicopters and a light engine plane were lifted up and it did not bring results, and 2 weeks later the official large-scale operation was curtailed. Only friends of the missing remained in the case. There was an assumption that the man could not be in the river. It was warm weather and the body of the drowned man should have already surfaced. Betty, in turn, attracted their attention because of her attitude to what happened when most believed that Jimmy might still be alive. She planned a memorial service in the midst of the search, but they had to leave their opinion. During the next 2 years, various examinations were carried out. The bureaucratic machine slowly unwound to determine insurance payments due to the death of a former firefighter to his widow, and long before the happy day and the finale, an anonymous person called the police, suggesting, considering that Jimmy's demise was not accidental, and 3 days before the insurance payment Betty was arrested on suspicion of murder. The searches and the plot quickly bore fruit. Investigators found a decorative wishing well dug and equipped by men at the request of her spouse under the moss and flowers were Jimmy's corpse. The police continued to study the site and after a while found the remains of up to spruce for 4 husbands-to-be, and both were shot with a .38 caliber pistol when they were sleeping. Details of the crime gradually began to be revealed. Children were involved in them. And from past marriages, it is possible that an anonymous call came from one of them. For example, in August '83, a woman asked her son to go for a walk for a few hours because she was going to kill Jimmy, and did not hide her intentions from her child. When the guy returned, he helped to bury the body of the stepfather, and then together they came up with a legend explaining the loss of the man. Prepared a boat with evidence. One of the daughters had previously helped her mother hide the body. Was in the 81st year. As a result, the son and daughter were and testified against their mother, who declared her in court. Innocence. The woman was accused of murder because of the desire to get insurance in the amount of $100,000 for the death of her husband. In response, she called her own children murderers. Outside experts pointed to a very difficult childhood to be in and the presence of post-traumatic stress disorder. Disorders. Against the background of bullying, it was also stated that she suffered bullying and humiliation from all her husbands, but no evidence was provided for that. The court found her guilty, sentencing the Black Widow to death by injection, but only for the murder of Jimmy. Dawn. Because of the peculiarities of Texas legislation, in addition, it was not proven that she also killed Barker's husband. The execution was carried out in 2000. When she turned 62, the execution was postponed several times for 10 years due to the subjects of appeals and petitions.